Yo, welcome to Illustrated Underground.
Episode 3.
Yo,
Today we're going to be talking about the X-Men.
and who's joining us today?
What's up, guys? My name is Yannick Florest. It's an honor to be here. I'm actually a SUNY New Paltz alum, graduated class of 2006, journalism major. I'm now a teacher here in Harlem at the Schomburg Center, where I'm a music teacher. And yeah, I was also a mentor to Q, who's now at my school. And yeah, it was a good journey. So I'm blessed and honored to be here. And of course, as you could tell, I'm a huge X-Men fan. So yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. So
We're very excited to break apart the X-Men, what because these characters are some of the biggest comic book
Yeah,
characters. They mean a lot to a lot of people.
yeah. What is your connection to the X-Men? Like your history with it?
so like I said, we was gonna have some fun today, right? It starts with this.
Oh, that is
It
Chris
starts with
Claremont's
this.
first.
This is the original VHS copy of Pride of the X-Men.
I remember that. Yes. With
So
Wolverine had an Australian accent, right?
Oh my God.
Yup.
yeah, so
Yup.
this is the video I had when I was a kid. When I was about, my mom got this. I might have been maybe like 5 or 6, maybe like 6, 7 years old. And yeah, I had gotten that video, and around the same time, I don't know if it was before, it had to have been after. Of course, as you know, the X-Men arcade game came out.
Oh,
It was one of my favorite games. I still love beat 'em ups to this day because of it. Yeah, so that's where I kind of knew what the X-Men were, but they was just like a team. Fast forward to October 31st, 1992. We get the X-Men cartoon, right? And I gotta say, so we'll get a little deep, right? As a young black boy growing up in the 90s Brooklyn, right? One of the things I had just gotten, one of the first experiences I had at the time was like learning that I was black, right? So what happened was, like, me and my mom and my brother, we were going shopping, and this woman on the escalator like pulled her purse for me. And it was the first time I had ever experienced something like that, right? So, my mom broke it down like it's race, and people just view us differently, blah, 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 blah. Fast forward to when X-Men comes out, Storm has that monologue with Jubilee where she's like, people fear what they don't understand. And it's like, oh, snap. Now I get you guys. Now I understand. So then I started to read the comics even more. Shout out Jim Lee and Chris Claremont, that whole run, with Juggernaut and Omega Red and the Return of
Yeah.
Magneto and all this other stuff, right? And then, of course, you get the video games. Mutant Apocalypse was one of my favorites. Hell, my boy had the Genesis. I used to go to his crib just to play X-Men 2, you know. Having to find out that you had to reset the first one on the Genesis to actually play, the last level. All of those different things, right? I say that to say that my connection to X-Men was, I came in at the time when it was being reborn, right? Because the X-Men, I don't know if y'all know the lore, and I guess we can get into that a little bit later. But around the time of like the 70s, it had went into a slump. They had canceled it. It came back in the 80s a little bit, but then the 90s really brought it back. And this is when I was there. So it's like, oh, snap, I got this cool comic with these cool comic book, with these cool powers. They're fighting these cool villains, and they're like their whole existence is an allegory to how I'm growing up as a black boy, right? It was perfect synchronicity. That's the word. Synchronicity right there. And so from there, I just became a lifelong fan, and just, to me, the X-Men are the greatest team of all time. They're the Wu-Tang of comic books. Whether you like it or not, okay, they are it. All right. I got my whole monologue. If you really want to kick the facts, I mean, they started the whole, like, the first superhero team movie. What was it? X-Men. The best cartoon, arguably, X-Men. The one that broke the mold on fighting games, X-Men, Children of the Atom. The reason why crossover fighting games are a genre, X-Men. I mean, the best characters in Marvel too, X-Men. The reason why two companies from two different countries are talking to each other, the X-Men. I mean, bro, first superhero team with a movie where it was Generation X M. You know what I'm saying? Like X-Men was just they're it. You know what I mean? Like, and again, this is where I get a little deep, but it's really I always look at the X-Men as an allegory to like the minoritized communities. You know what I'm saying? Like we always start the culture. You know what I mean? Like we're the culture. We're the ones that set the trends. We're the ones that you know really kick things off to make things like really fashionable, make things cool. You know that break in new genres like we did with hip hop and you know house music when the LGBTQ community, all of those different things, right? Like that's what the X-Men are, and we see that in modern media. Hell, Marvel vs. Capcom died until they brought back the X-Men. You know what I'm saying? With the new version. You know, Marvel Games had to clean out. They're like, all right, look, we lost way too much money just banking on the Avengers. We lost too much. Everything that went on with the Avengers was trash. Let's just call it a spade. Outside of the movies.
Yeah,
You know?
they're boring. Yeah, the X-Men are, I feel like they were like one of the first, like they made comics like cool, especially in like the 90s. They were like the pioneers of like that Jim Lee art.
Yeah.
Everybody like reading comics was cool then. Like,
Yeah, and I always love like the 90s X-Men. Like I know offline, Nick, I was talking to you about the Mutant Genesis saga and like where to begin with that. It's just like so
Wait,
many like
Deadly Genesis?
no, Mutant Genesis. The like where
Oh,
remember
the omnibus. Oh yeah, the omnibus. Okay, yeah.
it's that like I guess like it's a saga, but Deadly Genesis, we're definitely
Yeah.
gonna come back to that because I have my
Okay.
thoughts. But yeah, like it's just like during the 90s, I feel like just like the X-Men were so transformative, like, you know, just with like different allegories, with different like, you know, social political context. That's why I love it, you know? And like I
Yeah.
will say it, like I love X-Men slash X-Men 97. I feel like it's next to Batman the Animated Series, I feel like it's one of the greatest animated, you know, superhero comic book TV shows, whatever you want to call it. Just what the X-Men means, because also to me too, like it means like a voice for, you know, marginalization, for bigotry. Like, you know, what do they mean to you?
so I grew up on like the movies and stuff in the early 2000s. I honestly didn't read a ton of X-Men comics until not recently, but maybe like in the last like 3, 4 years. So I'm not a lifelong like super. I mean, I played the games growing up, Marvel vs.
Yeah.
Capcom and stuff, and Wolverine was always I always loved Wolverine. But,
Yeah.
like diving into the comics, especially for this episode, I really got like a lot of like the political importance of the X-Men because I feel like it comes across in the movies, but not as much as it should. Because the
Yeah.
comics,
Yeah.
like especially like God Love Man Kills, which I
Yeah.
read for this episode, so good. Like so, I've not read a comic that's so political, and I really appreciate that.
Mhm.
Like I think
Mhm.
they're characters that stand for something more than just being a superhero, which is awesome.
So, what are your favorite X-Men characters?
Ah man. Like I said, man, this is every single one of the characters like resonate with me in some way. Like, but I gotta go with the two that my my therapist said that they remind like I remind him of these two, Wolverine and Gambit. I'll go with those as my heroes. If I'm going villains, Exodus and Apocalypse.
Ooh,
Oh, okay.
Apocalypse is good.
Yeah.
Unpack that for us. Why? Why those choices?
Wolverine, I really am a loner. I'm a quiet guy. You know, I'm really like, you know, if I'm about something, it's like, all right, we ain't arguing, you know what I'm saying? Um, but then at the same time, like I'm really gentle. Um, you know, I'm loving, you know, charming like Gambit, but really devoted to like the cause, really devoted to my people, you know. That's the reason why I would say like Wolverine and Gambit because you know I'm fun and I'm like social in that way with them, like them. But I'm also like very much like a lover, like they are. You know, if you really like get to know their characters and know them beyond I'm cool and look at these cards and you know outside of that cool those things those things their action moves they're really like interesting people especially given like they both come from like very sordid backgrounds, right? Whereas it's the opposite with Exodus and Apocalypse. Apocalypse is just my dude, man. Like he's just him. Like You know, he started out kind of corny, like it's just a regular, like, aha, I'm bad, you know. But then I think as he evolved and they put him in more stories, I've appreciated like the depth to why he's a villain, you know. And then with Exodus, he's just so underrated, man. Like, but he's always been cool. And I don't know, maybe I'm biased because he came out like when I was a kid. You know, he was in the whole Acolytes early '90s. I think he was in that first issue, the X-Men #1 that came out with Jim Lee, the famous one. But all that being said, his power set is dope. His he doesn't get used as much, but the fact that he beat the Avengers and the X-Men at the same time, like soloed them, like I was so glad he got a cameo in X-Men '97. That's all I could.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
you know, even though all he did was dance, I'm like, all right, well, whatever. At least I got to see him. So
I mean, he may be a horseman. You never know. You never know.
the thing with Exodus, he has the power and the experience to be a leader, like like a big bad if he wanted to. The thing that I like about him that is consistent across the writers, but I don't like because like it just limits it nerfs him a lot, is that he's very loyal to someone. Like he's one of those people that needs someone to lead him, right? Because that's really the only stories he's ever shown up in. When you know the whole thing in the '90s, you know, and during the Mutant Genesis, you know, when he was an acolyte, right? Then after Magneto disbanded that, he pretty much was MIA until I think Deadly Gen no, not Deadly Genesis,
No.
Messiah Complex. When he
Yes.
was you know, when he led like his own little group of acolytes or whatever under Sinister, you know. And then the same thing kind of when he was on that the council in House of X, one of those of X stories. I forget, they're all mixed together, and I didn't finish it. So I'll be honest, that's kind of where I stopped. But during that whole thing, like he was, you know, just a jobber. You know what I mean? Like he got beat up by one of the Araco people, I believe. So like he gets, you know, he gets nerfed a lot and he gets, you know, dogged a lot in the comics with Exodus. But I think like honestly, like if given the right writer, he really could have a dope story, like, you know, that could be up there. But that's just my whole nerd out thing. So yeah.
Hey, and that's fine. Yo.
You want to go, Quincy? You want to say some of your favorite?
Ooh, okay. So if we're talking, like I said, if we're talking heroes, I definitely
Yeah.
do feel Wolverine because I love like, just like the emotional like comparisons to me and Wolverine too. And some that you label just like he's a loner, just like, at the same time, like he just wants to find peace. And I love that about Wolverine. Also like just like his, tough demeanor, but like deep down, he means well. He has, good heart, and you see that through like a lot of comics. Just like I'm gonna shout it out that I know this is your favorite run, the Greg Rucka run, especially I think where he's going after like the human traffickers or whatnot, and you see him like take passion and like actually bringing justice.
For no reason. Not because
Exactly.
he's not with the X-Men, he just wanted to do
Exactly.
his own thing.
Exactly. And like that's what I love about it. Like he's just like, yeah, he's been through this past, the Weapon X program, he's been exploited, but like he still chooses to do the right thing or the right thing he sees in his eyes. Number two is Nightcrawler. God loves man kills talked about this. I think Kitty Pryde said it. He was like, he has every right to be a monster, to be evil, but he chooses not to.
Yeah.
Like because he has every reason to be evil, literally, and like or every reason to turn the other cheek, but he doesn't, and he embodies this like kindness, charisma, and I love that about him too. And I
Very,
love him.
and he's very Christ-like in his walk, right? Like
Yep.
he's very
Exactly.
biblical. You know what I mean? Like imagine he's this guy who's quite literally, according to one of the canons, I don't know if it's still canon. Things get shifted over as we know, right? But he's quite literally the son of a devil.
Yep.
And yet here he is, this God-fearing, you know, person who like prays before he cuts the hell off a sentinel. You know what I'm saying? Like just the duality that exists is just so dope with him. So yeah.
I also think for me, Cyclops. Now I know like for me, I love the way X-Men 97 brought like him back, just his leadership role and his like actual like voice. Like he had a voice. Like, I feel like in Joss Whedon's X-Men and Brian Michael Bendis' Uncanny X-Men where he goes revolutionary, like you see him have a voice within the Dark Reign / Siege era when he's like, literally like going bang for bang for Norman Osborn, like, yo, like you're not like doing this to mutants. Like, yo, you're not like, he stands on business. So like that's what I love about Cyclops. Like, especially in that run, like he stands on business. He does not
Man,
care.
y'all got it
Norman
good,
Osborn. He
man.
doesn't
Like that's
like
the one thing. They used to paint Cyclops so dirt. They used to do him so bad, like in the early days. Like he was just like the nerd, and I'm like, nah, Scott been through it, man. Like Scott has really been through it. I've read some article like years ago, and I'll make this quick. But somebody was like, the whole Wolverine versus Cyclops comparison is unfair. Like Wolverine basically lives on like God mode because he has like unlimited healing. He has like these unbreakable skeleton. He can super senses. He can jump real high. Meanwhile, Cyclops, he has these eye beams. You know what I mean? Like he could die from a normal bullet. So it's just like the whole thing of like, yeah. Anyway, go ahead. So
yeah, so 3.
mm,
So I'm gonna probably make like a top 5, top 6 here. So this is just for heroes. I have Storm, just
yeah.
like just Storm. Like who doesn't have Storm?
It
Like let's
goes
be real.
without saying, man. That's why
That's what I'm
you know.
saying. Storm
Yeah,
for
Storm
me.
goes without saying. Like she's arguably like one of the greatest superheroes of all time. Like
Oh yeah.
easily on Mount Rushmore for me.
Yeah, Storm. I would say also too, if we're talking about like other X-Men, I would either say for me it's definitely, I would definitely say Gambit, but I would also say too, either Cable or Bishop, like just from the future, like getting that future lens because I just love like, especially Bishop. Like I guess for me with Bishop, it was mostly like from the animated series, like
Mhm.
just how he was depicted because I loved it, and then I'm not really too fond of Bishop like with the comics unless like his tie-ins or whatnot. I'm more so like with Cable with like X-Force stuff. It's like especially like the '90s
Yeah.
thing. So like I just love that.
Yeah, Bishop didn't get fleshed out really well either. Like, I he came out when I was a kid, but he was one of those
Yeah,
people who just felt like kind of like, okay, you're here, but his stories have been good. He just hasn't had a lot. So, but then again, it's like how much can you really tell with somebody who time travels? Like once you figure out what they're here for, it's like, all right, now what? Like
yeah,
because this whole thing was the reason why we got Onslaught.
yep. Yeah,
So
that's a like a controversial run, but yeah, you know.
yeah, we
With
can
like
get
the
into
Heroes
that later.
Reborn stuff and the pocket dimension, like
Yeah.
the only
That's
thing
we,
that
we can get into that later. We can,
for
so
sure. All right,
yeah.
so for villains, right? I have Magneto because I just love like, just what he represents too, especially because you could see like you maybe not agree, and this is I think we talked about in episode 1, like villains like who are complex with justifiable motives with flaws, and that's what I love about villains. I feel like that's what makes them more relatable.
Hmm.
So like Magneto definitely there. Shout out to God Loves Man Kills. We see him spearheading the X-Men, literally leading them. Vulcan, I think I like too.
He's another one that gets done dirty in the comics
That's what
too,
I'm
but
saying.
I love Vulcan, man. Yo, Deadly Genesis was one of my favorite runs. Like when he came back, I was like, oh nah.
Yes.
Professor X is an asshole. Oh, sorry, I don't can I
No,
curse?
we're gonna talk about it. Yeah, we're gonna talk
Oh,
about
okay,
it.
my bad.
No, you could. Yeah, you could.
Oh no, I was saying that
He's a douche.
Professor X is a jerk, right? The famous Kitty Pryde one, right? Um, but just really like how he lied about the team and then how he ended up in space and then got awoken because of the whole ending. It was just like, oh nah, this story was nuts. And then his power set, then the fact that he took over the Shi'ar Empire.
Yup, War Kings. Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that.
Oh,
I love
man,
his whole
man.
run. I feel like he's misunderstood too. And like I said, I love like the whole like Summers Gray like bloodline. It's unmatched. Like whoa, like you look at it like literally like they have energy manipulators, telepath, like yo, reality warpers.
Somebody said it. I forgot where it was, but somebody had put it out recently, maybe like a week ago. But like a comic blog or something was like the Summers family is like the greatest in comic history, something like that.
I
I'm
mean,
like,
I would say so. Yeah, I
for
don't.
them or
I can't argue. I mean,
For me, Sinister, only just because of the
Mhm.
Messiah complex stuff, really, for me. And I would also say, um, It's like Shadow King was on my mind, but not really. It's just like I feel like he like you said, like I feel like certain like villains get done like kind of dirty. So it's just like, yeah, no, I don't know. What about you?
All right. So I'm also gonna say Wolverine. That's
Mhm.
funny. We all three of us first guy who mentions Wolverine because I think he represents like a lot of positive masculinity too. But I think is
Yeah.
really dope about his character. And he just has like great stories. And I think we talked about it in the first episode, but we said that he has this healing factor and he
Yep.
can heal his body, but he can never heal his soul. And
Hmm.
seeing him accomplish everything he does with so much trauma is inspiring.
Yeah.
Like he's a very inspiring and like hopeful character in a lot of ways because he keeps going and because he has no other choice.
Yeah.
I like
Um,
what you. Oh no, go ahead, go ahead.
no, no,
Sorry.
no, keep yeah, go.
No, no, I was saying that I just wanted to say, like, I like what you said about him representing like positive or healthy masculinity, right? Because one of the things I think is underrated about him is his relationship with women, right? Like, yeah, he's been around the block, like, whatever, right? But when you look at like how like he raised Shadowcat, look at how he raised Jubilee, look at his relationship with Storm, and he was wait, who else did he rescue? He like literally rescued the X-Men when he first came out,
Yeah.
when they got kidnapped by the Hellfire
Krakoa.
Club, yeah, in Krakoa, right? The way he mentors X-23 and got her to, understand like how to be more human. Like I think that's something that, as violent of a character as he is, you two both hit the nail on the head. Like he really does represent like healthy masculinity, but then also that struggle for peace.
Yeah, no, he's such a great character, and just like I'm always was always playing as him in the video games and stuff, and Marvel vs. Capcom and whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and then okay, number two. I think I'm gonna combine my villains and
Okay.
heroes to one list because I think my
Yeah.
number two is Magneto. I think he's so interesting. I love when characters go from being heroes to villains. He's very morally in the middle. His motives are always very good, but he doesn't, always go about it in the right way. It's very complex, and his powers are
Oh
crazy
yeah.
and interesting, very unique, and like nothing was really done like that before in comics. And he gets very creative with how he uses it, and he's just
Yeah, that's the one thing I like. Is like the writers, they understand the assignment when it comes to Magneto. Like
oh
there's
yeah.
always something new. Like even in the video games, it's like, oh, how he is in this version is definitely not how he is in this one. So yeah.
And his design also is really cool. Like
Yeah.
the red and the purple colors are just very like striking on a
Hmm.
page.
Yes.
And he leads the Brotherhood of Mutants. He's great. For number three, I'd probably say I love Storm. Storm, I think, has the coolest powers of any X-Men. I think her powers are so like whenever she's doing her thing, it's just so
Hmm.
cool to look at. Like, Cyclops has the laser beams, which are also cool, but like, and she's strong
Yeah.
too. Like
Yep.
I think she could beat Thor in a fight, maybe.
Oh, for sure.
Like
I think so, personally.
They fought recently.
they definitely have. I don't know. I haven't
No,
read.
no. They in her she had a limited series that just finished maybe like last month but they definitely fought in that story because like she ended up getting powers and merging with Eternity. It's a whole thing. But yeah, she could beat Thor. So yeah, you guys are right.
Yeah, she's awesome. Who else? All right, I don't know if I'm kind of in a loose order because I don't know if he's like my number four, but I also really like Sabretooth. I think
Mhm.
he's a really cool villain. Like just like, he's not, he's whatever, but his rivalry with Wolverine
Oh yeah, one
is
of the
like one
best.
of the best in
Oh,
comics.
I agree.
Like
Yeah,
their
yeah.
thing every time, like I love from like the Greg Rucka run, like Wolverine just is
Yes.
like trolling him. Like he just does like those two, like it's almost like a cat and mouse game. Like it has a
Hmm.
playfulness to it, but like it's also very like because their trauma is like interlinked with the Weapon X program and
Hmm.
stuff.
Hmm.
And he's just very cool. It's a way of Wolverine's past to kind of come up on him. Kitty Pryde. I love Kitty Pryde. Because she's kind of like the voice of the reader a lot of the times, I feel like she's the way like she's very she's not as strong as the other X-Men, but she her personality is why she stands where she stands. Like And I think it's good to have characters that are a little less powerful because she kind of has to use her powers in more creative ways, and her personality really comes through. And she's great in like God Love Man Kill.
Oh yeah.
She's great in the Joss Whedon run. Like
Yep.
she has a lot of really good moments. And to see her go from being like young, like a young, new, fresh X-Men to like being one of the most experienced and like mature is a really cool like progression to see.
No, for sure. Yeah, I love Kitty Pryde too. I should have cleared her on my list, but yeah, she definitely. I would say like definitely
It's
a top.
so many because I'm like,
Yeah.
I know,
y'all
like
want to go like teen teams, you want to go Generation M, you want to go. I keep saying Generation M, Generation X. Like you want to go New Mutants, you want to like. There's so much to like about each team, each iteration.
I don't know. I mean, I love Nightcrawler. So a
oh
lot of
yeah,
people mentioned Magic from the new. You said New Mutants. I love the Chris
Yep.
Claremont New Mutants run like that.
I
Magic is great in that.
I love Moonstar. Moonstar, Danny Moon. Yeah, Moonstar.
Yes.
I like Sunspot too. Like just like from the original run as well, and I'm glad they brought him back in X-Men '97. Like there's just so many. Like I'm just trying to think like through my brain like of who. Like there's Chamber.
I love Chamber, man. Chambers
I knew it. I knew it. Yeah.
Chambers like in my top like 10.
But like the X-Men, like they're so cool because it's like they're in the Marvel universe, but they exist on their own. Like they really are their own universe, I feel like. There are people that just read X-Men comics. And like you don't find that with any other like superhero team. There are people that will like not read comics outside of X-Men. I think that's so cool. Like that there's that many good characters that like we could sit here for the whole episode and literally just go through all the X-Men. Then
Literally.
if you had to lead a team,
Yeah.
who would be your X-Men you would take along with you?
Not counting any of the mainstays.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Not counting any of the mainstays. Okay. Hellion, X-23, Rockslide, Chamber, Forge, Bishop, Mamo Max, because just a big ass elephant. He's just fucking cool, man. He's just a big elephant. Dust.
Okay.
I need Dust for my team. I need Dust. I'll take Armor. I like Armor.
Armor's cool. Armor is like a big part of the new Ultimate X-Men run, and I've been reading a little bit of that, and he's very good in that.
And then as team lead, Prodigy. Outside of the regular X-Men, my second favorite iteration is the new X-Men, particularly under the I always mess their names up. The Kyle and Yost run. Those stories were so much fun, man. Those stories were fun. Those were the ones that made it feel kind of like X-Men again. It was more like, all right, we're really persecuted because it was hot off the M-Day stuff. Yeah, and then they had to fight Nimrod, who was powering up like the purifiers. It was a whole mess. But yeah, it was cool to see like teenagers really back in it again. So
Yeah, because the original X-Men grew up, and then for a while,
Yeah.
it's just
yeah.
kids anymore.
Yeah.
As somebody who just started reading the X-Men like a few years ago, it's hard to get into them. Like I didn't really know where to start. So, what do you think is a few good starting points for people that are just getting into it?
God Loves Man Kills. Absolutely. Mutant Genesis for sure. Because that's like the whole Chris Claremont, Jim Lee run. That's essential. And then I'd say is my third one, everything that was going on, all the X titles after or around House of M.
Okay.
Around House of M and then after. The reason why I picked those three stories in particular, or three eras, those were the ones that really made the X-Men what they were, as far as them being the allegory to like race, gender, religious affiliation, all of those things, right? The problem that I found with the X-Men runs, and I mean, you see this again in mainstream media, is that they'll have these great stories which talk, which are very heavy politically, social commentary, and then they'll come back and then like the next 5 stories will be some action stuff that has nothing to do with nothing, and then you're like, what the hell is it? What? I don't remember any of the villains. Why are y'all here? You know, that whole thing. But I think those three eras in particular tell you what makes the X-Men cool and what makes them relevant.
Because that's a solid choice.
Yeah, those are very solid choices. I appreciate that you didn't just say read like because a lot of people like read the original 70s Chris Claremont stuff.
Yeah.
And I think most of that is, it's classic, it's good. I think it's a little dated. I think it's very wordy. And God Love Man Kills reads very well. It stands on its own. And I think that's kind of what you need to get out of his original, like the 70s run. Before, the 90s stuff that he did with Jim Lee is a little easier to read, definitely, more like action focused. But yeah, the original Chris Claremont stuff is kind of.
There's Grant Morrison's run or whatnot, which I know we're gonna get into. There's that.
Yeah. I was actually gonna say, like, as an addendum, my third one, which is the whole House of M. Start with the Genosha run. Start with Genosha and then go all the way up until what was that? Messiah War.
So it's like intertwined. It's like Messiah War, Messiah Complex, and Second Coming. Those are all like.
Yeah, you can start with Messiah War because that's when they find Hope and she's an adult and everything like that.
Yeah.
But everything, because the reason why I say Genosha in particular was because during the Grant Morrison run, that's when like all the 16 million mutants were killed. So then, the whole Cassandra Nova stuff.
For extinction.
So all of that stuff afterwards is like, okay, that's what makes the X-Men the X-Men. So anyway, back to y'all. So, yeah.
No, we're loving it, like, because I feel like those are solid choices because I feel like especially Grant Morrison's run with E's for Extinction, with the Imperial or Imperium stuff and Planet X. We're gonna do a Grant Morrison episode, audience, so like we'll definitely dive into those there, but this is gonna be kind of a spoiler free. But just I love like that these and his run or their run is a soft reimagining of the X-Men for like the 2000s for new readers and audiences, or like, maybe who haven't got into it, And yeah, while there was Ultimate X-Men at the time, I feel like this was kind of one that like, okay, that was for readers through the characters and also to like help like kind of like corresponded to the movies at the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like even like, and we're getting like the suits adapted in X-Men 97. So like I can't wait to see that, like to see that influence of Grant Morrison's run rubbing off.
Joss Whedon's X-Men reads very cinematic.
Oh yeah.
It's similar to the movies. So if you're somebody that's watched the movies and you just kind of want to sneak into the comics, that's a good like point to. And you get like I feel like you get a good idea a lot of years. The only thing is Professor X really isn't in it all.
Yeah, and that's because of what happens in a Grant Morrison's run. Which is a whole nother can of worms. But I feel like we're relating to the movies, like with the whole like premise of the cure, like in X3 last year, and they were talking about immune cure. And then I feel like that number one, but also too, as you were saying, Nick, like just tying in mutants with like, the whole social political, like, worldview, because you kind of see this like, mutants as like a, political and cultural thing in Joss Whedon's run. Like you find it like it's like a worldly issue, and also too not with the cure, but just like with like their relations with humans
and Shield even.
Exactly.
Yep. Like not that Nick Fury hates them, but he doesn't like them. Like he doesn't want to work with them. He doesn't want to really have much to do with them.
Yeah, because even his interaction with Cyclops too, and even in Brian Michael Bendis' run, like you see like kind of Cyclops and his team's relation with like Shield and how they bicker, and also too like kind of like I don't want to reveal too much, but kind of like characters kind of playing double agents too in order to find out what's happening with Shield and then how they're trying to harm mutants. Also, too, speaking of that, I wanted to get your take because I remember us talking about this offline, Nick. So, what do you feel that like Captain America, him being portrayed in like X-Men related stories as like being anti-mutant, even in the TV show?
I never looked at Cap as anti-mutant, right? I always looked at him as, and nobody take this the wrong way who's listening, right? But as the well-meaning white person, right? Like, the person who's really quick to say, "Oh yes, I heard Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, and I donated to Black Lives Matter, and I went to a protest for George Floyd," and like it's stuff that like sounds good, right? But when it comes to substance, it doesn't show up, right? And it's not to say that he's wrong, right? But Cap, a lot of the times, his vision for America sometimes clouds the reality of what America is for him at the time, right? Case in point, when we were talking about Genosha, right? 16 million mutants gone. No Avengers at all, right? But every time some space god that the Avengers done pissed off, Tony Stark done stole their tech or something, and oh my God, they're coming back here. Oh, X-Men guys, can you help us? Guys, can you help us? Even in Onslaught, right? Onslaught was cool up until he joined, like he became like an Avengers villain. That's when he really became, that's when it became a whack run. When he was only with the mutants and only with the X-Men, it was everything about Onslaught was fire. It made sense. It was cool. Then all of a sudden, the Avengers got involved somehow in a Fantastic Four, and it's like, huh? What? Now I got to jump into some wormhole and another dimension. Whatever. Anyway, back to Cap. I say that to say is that a lot of his work with mutants is a distraction. It's not to say that he's anti-mutant. He just hasn't been written in a way. And I like that he hasn't been written in that way, right? Because it's like, damn, you have this symbol of America, of this freedom, this symbol of freedom, yet he's never really shown up for a specific subsection of the country, right? And it's such a dope thing to really talk about. Like, wow, so what does it mean to have Captain America that doesn't show up when school buses of mutant kids is blown up by a hate group, right? Like, what does that actually mean? It's the same questions we ask when we say, hey, how come like the Democrats or these people show up for this, but they don't show up when black kids are, being shot at schools and they have, bad equipment in there, all of these different questions we ask, right? It's the same thing. And so personally, I love that Cap is written that way, where he's not a bad person. He's not William Stryker, right? He's not I hate mutants, they're an abomination, right? He respects mutants, but he just hasn't, whenever there's a crisis, he's just never there, right? And worse worse than the fact that he's never there is that whenever he's been called out on it, he's never had a good excuse. And again, that goes back to why I love the X-Men, because they bring up these questions. They make us ask, like, well, hey, what does it mean when these like people who say they stand with us don't actually stand with us? How do we hold them accountable?
I think like it's very interesting. I love what you said. It's a very great way of putting it. And it's like he's very complacent in all of this, but he wants to be the person that like stands against it and is, supportive of them. But he is America, and America, he's complacent with all the stuff that's marginalizing the mutants, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and I love like what you were talking about of how like the X-Men brings that to the forefront, like in X-Men 97, where like, Rogue pretty much, goes on like a mission trying to like find out what happened on Genosha, like behind it. And like, they have their little interaction. He's like, oh, come help me. It'll mean something like when, Captain America, is coming. But he's like, oh, well, if I do, this will send the wrong message to this country or this region or this nation that like, America is against them.
It's interesting because we're going to see, I mean, I don't know how I feel about this, but the X-Men are coming into the MCU.
Yep.
So we've had all these X-Men movies that have come out and they've been in their own universe doing their own thing. Now we're going to see them interact with like Captain America and stuff in the MCU. And I'm curious to see how that plays out, if they're going to play into what we're talking about or if they're just going to throw them in there and be like, oh, everybody's buddies now. Because I don't think the mutants can exist without this history. Like, I really don't understand what they're going to do with them. They're not characters you could just be like, oh, mutants are just appearing now. Like,
yeah,
Miss Marvel's a mutant. Like,
Yeah, I didn't like the way they did that with in the show because like even though she was Inhuman, I understand they retconned it in the comic. I just didn't really like it because I feel like you have to have this larger, greater context to mutants because mutant issues like it's global, it's social, it's political, and I feel like just having like just pop out out of nowhere because a lot of people are like theorizing like after the snap mutants popped up. I'm like that's really a reach because I feel like there's like wider context to mutants like an ongoing history. And the way I feel that they should do it, and I want to hear from y'all, I feel like, supposedly Marvel's going to go into this soft reboot, the MCU. And I feel like during this soft reboot, that's when, like, universe gets reset. That's when we should start to get mutants and, like, kind of like, the like foundational stories of like, Marvel and like, Marvel, just Marvel comics and, different storylines that like were foundational to Marvel's conception and upbringing.
I think you need to, you can't have the X-Men without including like Magneto's origin with the Holocaust.
That's what I'm saying.
You really need to tie it into like, black problems and like problems of like marginalized people. And I think the only way you could really do that justice is starting over with like a soft reboot.
That's
and,
yeah.
and showing them from, years and years ago, like they were one of the first superhero teams.
Yeah.
I agree with that. What do you think, Nick?
When it comes to the X-Men, what I think will work best for the MCU is they do something, I don't know how, maybe with Molecule Man, like they're doing with like Battle Worlds, Secret Wars, right? Where some kind of thing where like all the multiverses collapse into one, right? Because what was it, phase 4, phase 3, whatever it was, with all the multiverse, it's a hot mess, especially with What If. I'm like, so is there one universe? Is there multiple? What is the TVA doing? And then there's Loki somewhere. I don't know. It's just a lot. Then there's Strange somewhere, then Doom somewhere, then Kang somewhere. I'm like, yo, can y'all just make it one? Just go back to one, okay?
Yes.
Great. Multiverses exist. Cool. We know you guys are there in the Foxverse. We know you guys are there in, the Universal verse. We'll probably get the Hulk rights back. Because remember, there's business decisions around this too, right?
Yes.
It's not just, okay, we want to put these heroes in, we don't want to put them in. They want to put them in strategically, which is why they forced, Guardians of the Galaxy. I hate Guardians of the Galaxy. I really hate Guardians of the Galaxy. But them and the Inhumans on us because they couldn't do anything with X-Men because of the Fox and all of that dumb stuff, right? Let's go back. So we do something where the multiverses collapse, right? We have one Earth. We're not worried about Earth 9065.2, right? This is the Earth that has the Avengers as they've been, Spider-Man as they've been, the Fantastic Four as they've been, mutants as they've been from the Foxverse, right? Mm-hmm. But we make some subtle changes time-wise and thematically for the MCU. I want Professor Xavier and Magneto to be black. I want Professor Xavier to be from New York like he always was. But I want Magneto to come from apartheid era South Africa. Reason being, one, you can easily one that gives you the generational racial trauma that Magneto has, right? Between being wanted and human and not being human, right? Two, with apartheid era of South Africa, you can always, it's contemporary, right? So that would age and that would make him like 60-year-old man in today's movies, right? Because remember, we still want to make him older. And three, that gives you a place where you can actually have experimentation. Why? What was happening in the apartheid era of South Africa? There were a lot of kidnappings. There was a lot of land theft. There was a lot of house theft. Families were moved around. There were concentration camps during that time, right? So boom, you still get the same story with Magneto. You just don't have it in the Holocaust in World War II. And it's only and I'm not saying, and God, I don't know who's gonna watch this. I'm not saying this as some anti-Semite, okay? I'm not discounting the Jewish trauma. What I'm saying is Magneto, there's only like 3 Holocaust survivors alive today, right?
True.
It doesn't make sense to do a movie with one and they'd be like 99 years old. Like, and you really expect some 99-year-old man to be throwing around tanks? Like, come on, guys. Like, let's be for real. And it makes more sense if you make them black leaders. And this is where we'll get a little deep too, especially as black male leaders, right? There's a strong level of social commentary that those two can carry, both with the racial history, the mutant history, the gender history. But you can still tell the same dynamics with Professor X and Magneto, right? And the reason why they would meet, Professor Xavier was doing some operation while he was serving in Desert Storm or something like that. I don't know. We can make up some reason why he was in whatever country. Excuse me for belching. But, you know, that's what I think will work for the X-Men in today's time. To have them as two prominent black men with two very conflicting ideologies, right? Because then here's the beautiful thing you get with it. You get T'Challa, who's the other like secret third kind of leader, who then could bring in this other kind of philosophy that we could then have podcasts and all these different comic books and all kind of authors could talk about and discuss, and we could have all these, you know, Reddit threads, all these different things, right? What you want to do with movies, especially with something like the X-Men, right? It's not like the Avengers where that's just a summer blockbuster movie, right? It's like, oh shit, there's a bunch of comic books there that do this, and there's the Easter egg, and they threw in this actor from this old TV show. You could do that with the X-Men. But Marvel, they have to be a lot more responsible with the stories that they tell, right? Because look at the world that we're in, right? That's why Superman works so well, right? The newest one, right? You see it. It's just like, oh, shoot, Superman's fighting on the side of Gaza, right? That's literally what it is. They just changed the names, right? It's the same principle that I think would make the X-Men successful for beyond just the box office. Like, people are going to go see an X-Men movie just because it's X-Men. Like, let's just call a spade, right? But if you tell the story the right way, which is what the first movie did, even the second movie, in the Foxverse, the X1 and X2, what those two movies did really great, and even X-Men Mutant Apocalypse, I know that movie gets a lot of slack, but I love that movie. We can go into that a little bit later. But the reason why those movies work because they're really heavy on the social commentary. Mm-hmm. That's what keeps people talking about it, right? And with something that has it's unfathomable what Marvel has done with the MCU. Even with the terrible shit that's come out, the terrible stuff, right? To come out with a single narrative across movies, TVs, sometimes comic books, one-off specials for the last, it started 2008, so
20 years.
17 years, right? A 17-year saga across, and you're dealing with superheroes. All right, now you're gonna add in this stuff. Y'all got to do it the right way, the same way y'all did Doctor Strange the right way, same way y'all brought in Hulk the right way, same way y'all brought in, you know, the Fantastic Four the right way. Marvel has to do that with the X-Men. They have to do it in a way where it's not pandering, which is what a lot of the TV shows were guilty of, right? But it still has the same bite as far as like what we're talking about, you know, as far as what the X-Men stand for with race and sexual orientation and all those different things. So
I love that so when I read, and you guys can let me know what you think of this, but like when I read God Love Man Kills, one thing that I noticed rereading that book is I find it a little bit strange that it kind of feels like they're taking like black problems and putting them on white characters. And I think that's very of the time. Like, you know, when Stan Lee and Jack Kirby wrote this, did Jack Kirby do the original X-Men? I think he did, whatever.
Yeah. I don't remember. Whatever, keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, but when Stanley made you couldn't, if you made a team of black people, nobody would read it. Like it was a very different time, but now it's not like that anymore. And I think that it's time for them to get like I think making Charles Xavier and Magneto black would make their characters so much better and so much more interesting. I completely agree with what you said. I just think that it's time that we kind of switch up the X-Men and modernize them and take a leap forward because they have the potential to be, I mean, they are really great, but they have even more potential, I feel like. I see potential with the X-Men, and I see them coming into the MCU as an opportunity for people to get into them, the same way that the Fox X-Men got people into them, back in the early 2000s and stuff.
I was gonna say because I love like this narrative, kind of like reframing the characters of Professor X and Magneto, and being that you were saying that like they could be two black leaders, and we hear a lot of people comparing them to Malcolm X and MLK, even though like necessarily I know they weren't based off of that, but I feel like during the Chris Claremont eras when they really started to show that like identity and this that like that reason with the two. I mean, how do you feel about that?
One, that narrative is false, right? Like it's
Yeah.
not true, right? Um, but I think that there is some validity to it. There's a lot of validity to it, right? And when you ask the question of how does someone get into the X-Men, it's it's the same thing. It's like how do you get into learning Black history, right? How do you learn about the history of the gay rights, the gay community, right? Like how do I learn about Asian history, right? Well, you start off with like some of their biggest struggles, right? And how did they overcome them, right? And so that's why I think like the allegory, while it's false in its history, right? I
Yeah.
don't know why people keep saying it is as much as information's come out, but it's not disingenuous that people still run with it because it makes sense, especially when you look at how the characters operated and again, even if you study how Malcolm X and Martin Luther King existed, right? They on the surface they seemed like they came to fisticuffs, but they were friends.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to say friends, but they were colleagues, right? They understood that their approaches, while different, were to the same goal. So anyway, I know that's a long-winded answer, but to answer your question, it's just it's a way of adding real world context into why the X-Men are important is comparing them to these two leaders.
Yeah, I think, and it's important to say, like, Stanley definitely did not mean for that. I don't want to give
Yeah.
him any credit. Like, that is something that those characters took on
Yeah.
with like fans and stuff over the years. And I think it's an interesting talking point. I don't
Yeah.
think it's one for one, like perfect. Like,
I think it's just like an interesting like inquiry and like a comparison because I feel like within like the Chris Claremont like writings,
Mm-hmm.
you see that most like that being like the characters being reinvented,
yeah,
within his stories more so, and that's when people started to draw the parallels like oh, well this happened back in back in the '60s or whatnot, just drawing those parallels and making those connections or whatnot. So I feel like you said there is validity maybe it wasn't like, the truth and it isn't, but that was like, there's some validity and you could see some characteristics within those two characters depicted within these two leaders. So yeah, I'm glad you touched upon that.
there's a lot of like big points where like the X-Men are really blew up and were like really popular, like in the 90s. And another big one was like in the early 2000s with the movies. When do you think they were the most popular? Do you think like Jim Lee's stuff made and the cartoon they were the most popular, or when the movies came out?
Oh nah, it's absolutely when the comics came out. That X-Men #1 is still like the greatest selling comic, if not like top 3 of all time. Still, it's 2025 and that came out in 1991. I don't think honestly the movies might have depreciated the X-Men's value, if anything. While in the beginning I gave it a lot of props for being the first superhero team movie, right? I mean, arguably you could say Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is the teen movie, but whatever, right?
It's different.
Um, huh?
I feel like TMNT and X-Men. X-Men is like the first like traditional
Yeah.
superhero.
Yeah. Because I'm like, I don't know who counts TMNT as superheroes, but I don't know. Anyway, that's another aside. Um, The movie is not to say it didn't have its flaws, especially the first one. Now, X2, woo-wee, that one blew up. We was all in the theaters like, oh, like every 3 seconds, man. Like, I remember we went to the theater up in Newport because it came out our sophomore year, I think. It was like 9 of us. We all went in the theater and we just like, yo, Colossus, lost it. So all that to say, right? Like, I don't think the movies brought any more acclamation or fame to the X-Men franchise than the comics did. Like, no, it was absolutely the comics. Because from the comics, you got everything else. Like, again, like I said in the beginning, you got the cartoon, you got the video games, you got the movies, you got other media, like friggin' like toys. I had a hat at one point, like not the one I have now, but you know, something similar. You know, like there was X-Men bed sheets, everything. You know, but it all came from the comic, whereas the movie came from the comic as well. Like the X-Men weren't even popular until like the 80s. The first cartoon that they were in was in an episode of Namor from the 1966 what was it called? The Marvel superhero something or other. The 1960s cartoons. You can't find them online because they're a little racy. If you search, you can look for them. They were in the first episode of that, like one of that first episodes of a 1960 show, but they weren't called the X-Men. They were just a bunch of superheroes. They wore their costumes, but they weren't specifically called the X-Men because they couldn't use the Fantastic Four at the time because those rights were in another company. Then they had the pilot and you know, prior to the X-Men, that didn't go anywhere. So again, that 1991 X-Men #1, where you got Magneto in the front, and Cyclops, the Wolverine, the Rogue, Iceman, Storm, Archangel, Professor XG. That cover, that issue, it didn't just change X-Men, it changed the comic book industry as we knew it.
I was just at a comic book store over the weekend, and I was gonna. I didn't bring it with me because I forgot it, but I was gonna get an X-Men comic to have up here, and I was looking for X-Men 1, and I was going through the bin, and then I get to the area with X-Men 1, and then there was another one, and another one, and another one, and another one, and this comic store just had like 11 copies of the first one. I was like, damn, this. I've always read that this comic sold so much, but like it really sold a lot. Like, and just I feel like yes, like I'm sure the writing was a big part of that, but like the art, I really think that is what
No, it
changed.
was the art. It was absolutely the art. Like Jim Lee was just different, man. Like it's not anything against any artist before.
Yeah,
Nothing against anybody before. But it was just something about the way Jim Lee, because Jim Lee looked like it was very like manga
yeah.
style, but like American, like
It had a
like you know,
Yeah.
it feels like the stuff you read before it, like even the stuff in the 80s that I like Batman Year One, whatever, it has like a softness to it. Like Jim Lee
yeah,
stuff really brought like a edginess and like a bite to comic book art that it didn't
yeah.
at that time. I feel like we got to talk about the Foxverse. I mean, we were kind of touching base on it a little bit before. Maybe some like outside of the comic stuff, like the video games and stuff. I know you mentioned the X-Men arcade game before. Phenomenal. Like that was a pioneer of its genre. The X-Men, they really are one of those characters that stands out. Like X-Men are one of those, there's very few comic book characters that have a lot of good like video games. I think X-Men are one of those characters that work really well for video games because you could switch between all the different X-Men. But what do you guys want to talk about? The movies or anything outside of the comics? What's your favorite X-Men thing outside of the comics? Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, man, that's a hard question, man. That is an absolute. That might be the hardest question anybody's ever asked me with regards to like my X-Men fandom.
I think I would say the cartoon.
I would say the cartoons and like the movies, particularly like for me, like aside from my love of X-Men, X-Men 97, I'm gonna say X-Men Evolution. I love X-Men Evolution. For that time, it just introduced like a lot. And also too, I felt like it had a lot of callbacks to the Ultimate Universe, which was going on at the same time within Marvel. just like a lot of the characters. We got like Spike, like we got like I love like the Sabretooth and Wolverine dynamic within that. There's so much. There's so much within that show that I could talk about, and I just love it. And like while it had its flaws and stuff like or whatnot, I will say that I didn't like some depictions of characters. I like overall liked it. Other than like it would be like kind of like my number like a runner up. Aside from X-Men 97, I like that. For movies, Logan, Days of Future Past. I feel like I conflict with those when everybody says like, "What's your favorite X-Men movie?" I feel like I either say Days of Future Past or Logan because I love Logan. It gives that like action, but also like that Western type feel. Like it gives like it's kind of like rooted in like Western. I love it, and it's just like Wolverine, like literally like from the trailer to like with Johnny Cash is like her playing in the background, like it just set the mood. And I was like, Wolverine's going out. Like he's like, I'm going out like this, like
That's like probably honestly one of the best comic book movies ever. Logan is, I mean, that I feel like that even transcends the X-Men. Like it stands on its own.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So I have three things I'd say are my favorite non-comic X-Men things. In no particular, I gotta say this particular order. Number one, X-Men Legends for the PS2.
That game is
My God, I'm still waiting for a remaster. So I want a remaster so bad.
You played the second one too with Apocalypse?
Oh yeah, bro. Like those are my Newport's games. Like trust me, like those are the games I was playing when I was in College Hall, room 154. Okay, like those.
Wow.
That's what I was playing or when I was in. Like I love X-Men Legends, man. It was so much fun. Because it took from the Ultimate storyline mostly. I mean, it was his own unique thing, but comic like design wise, it was more so from the Ultimate line. But an X-Men RPG,
we gotta play. I have it in my house.
nothing like it. If you could get your hands on an emulator, definitely play it. Number two, sticking with video games, X-Men Mutant Apocalypse for the Super Nintendo. I ran that game into the dirt. I ran it into the dirt. And then number three, the anime opening for the X-Men animated TV show.
Oh yeah.
I don't know who the hell's idea in Japan it was to make them two things. Oh, fire. The theme song, everything. If y'all haven't seen it on YouTube, look it up. I promise you, it'll give you goosebumps, man. Those are my top three. So yeah.
All right, wait. Let me think. Let me give a more formal because I think the X-Men Legends games are probably in my top three too. Those are the best X-Men games, and people they led into like Marvel Ultimate Alliance, which are really big games, but they wouldn't exist without the X-Men, laying the groundwork. And it's just so cool to play as a different X-Men. I think X-Men. Though I haven't finished it, X-Men 97 is very, very good.
You haven't finished it, man.
Yeah,
No,
I know.
We gotta end this call, bro. We gotta end this call now, man. Like, what?
Yeah, I know.
I should have been part of your homework to talk to me, man. Nah, man. I thought you was cool, John. Nah,
I'm
man.
sorry. But it is very good. There's just so much stuff that comes out with the Marvel stuff. It's just hard to keep up with. But I think watching it now, I think it's one of the best things that Marvel has put out in years. Like the animation, like what they did with I usually am not like huge on Cyclops. Like I think he's cool, but he's not one of my favorites. He's really good at that show.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he's fantastic. Magneto's fantastic. And I grew up watching the 90s show. So like seeing it like evolve into something like more not modern, but seeing it evolve and have more layers to it is really cool. And also, I mean, Logan's great. I mean, I don't know if that counts, but Logan is
counts.
Very, very
good. As long as it's not in between pages.
There's a Wolverine game coming out. We wanted to like briefly mention that too. So it's good because the X-Men haven't really been in the gaming scene a lot recently. So it's going to be cool to see them come back and hopefully other characters other than Wolverine. I know Mystique was in the trailer and Omega Red and the Sentinels and stuff. So that'll be very interesting to see Wolverine get like the Spider-Man treatment with
Yeah.
modern consoles and like it'll be very interesting. I'm excited to see how that game comes out.
And bloody.
Yeah.
Man, I watched them trailers. All right, whoa, okay. Not like the
Yeah.
Wolverine games I had growing up.
But he lends well to that, he rips through the guy like that is what I want.
About time, like like even with Logan, it's like, why do y'all keep making these PG-13 Wolverine movies? Like he's a guy with like a foot-long claws in his hand. Like
Wait, Logan's not rated R.
blood, okay? Give us blood. It's okay. All right, we can handle it.
I feel like we should talk about the Foxverse. We kind of touched on like the first two movies, but I know you said that you liked Age of Apocalypse, which is one that a lot of people don't like. I also kind of like that movie. I think it's a very entertaining. I don't know. I Oscar Isaac as Apocalypse is a little weird, but well, I think it's a good X-Men team up movie.
What you got to do, go back and watch a movie called The Monster Squad.
I love that movie.
If you watch The Monster Squad, X-Men Apocalypse is literally just an X-Men version of it. Literally beat for beat. Look, this is what happens. You have Apocalypse, who's the role of Dracula, the old guy that comes back to life, right? You got Magneto, who's the Frankenstein, who's the conflicted guy who works with Dracula, but then eventually goes to the side of the heroes. And then the rest of the Horsemen are just like the Wolfman, the Mummy, and what's the other woman?
Monster.
The little ghost woman, whatever it was. Meanwhile, on the X-Men side, you got the teenagers. You got Nightcrawler, you got Jubilee, and who else? Cyclops, I think, was a kid. I forgot the exact roster off the top of my head. But because the Monster Squad was one of my favorite movies, and then I'm looking at X-Men Apocalypse, I'm like, this is literally an X-Men version of it. Like, beat for beat. It's the same exact movie. All they did was just change the names. That's why it's one of my personal favorites. And I liked, it was different, but I liked Oscar Isaac's version of Apocalypse because for me, while I absolutely love the big hulking guy who could change it to like 99 chainsaws and machine guns and lasers and shields and all this stuff, right? And maybe it was just like the style of the movie, but it just didn't seem like it would work for me, right? Like to have some big guy like, oh, I'm Apocalypse and I'm gonna squash you, X-Men. Like, huh? Really? Like him being like a slow, older, almost mystical villain. For me, it made him work a lot more than it would like, he's just some big guy, running through like the X Mansion for like the 99th time. So yeah, I think they did well with the movie. I like what they did with all the horsemen. I love what they did with Archangel. Storm was cool. I liked Psylocke. The actress was a little flat, but I like the overall, role in the movie. And then of course, Magneto did his damn thing in that movie, Loved the his whole role. And then Professor X going bald, and there was just too much good in it for me to like harp on some of the flaws of the movie. Not to say that it didn't have them, but yeah.
It doesn't take itself too seriously, like
yeah.
Very good. What did the Dark Phoenix saga follow that?
Yeah, that was Dark Phoenix. Yeah,
that's rough.
I didn't watch that. Like,
yeah, that's
listen.
Rough.
As much as I love the X-Men, there's a lot of things that I tend to try to skip because I can see nonsense coming a mile away.
The New Mutant, that wasn't like the New Mutants one that came out like years after.
Yeah, unfortunately.
No. Well, New Mutants I thought about because I heard it wasn't too bad, but I'm just like,
yeah, it's like
maybe.
I really like X-Men First Class and Days. I know you talked about it in the first episode, like as Future Past is one of your favorite movies. I agree. It's a great superhero movie. Those two work really well together.
They do.
Seeing Wolverine go back in time and like it's kind of like a time travel story. It worked really well when put to screen, to be honest. Like I'm really glad that they did that story justice because it's one of the best, in my opinion, like X-Men comic stories. Days of Future Past is very, very good.
Agreed.
And First Class is great too. It has that like it almost feels like this might seem weird, but it almost feels like the Incredibles a little bit. I think it's the same guy that did them, but it has this very like timeless superhero feel to
Yeah.
it.
And
Where
it
it's
kind of
very,
gives like a spy type of thing, like with like a thriller, like espionage somewhat.
yeah,
Hmm.
Yeah. Like I like that too. I like what I like about First Class Days of Future Past. I love that like it like shifts, right? So you see like, okay, like Professor X is this optimistic, hopeful, like, instructor, leader. And then you see like Days of Future Past, like, yo, man's is broken, man's is fractured. And that's what I love, like seeing that shift and like how he like overcomes that adversity, and like just how he gets back on the straight and narrow. So I love that. I love that it's Wolverine, and again going back to your point about Wolverine like representing and being like kind of a symbol of healthy masculinity and positive masculinity. Like just him helping Professor X of all people, like come out of that tough and rough time in his life.
the Wolverine movies are great too.
Yes,
I love the Wolverine. I
I
know
do
a lot of
too.
people who grew up in that movie. Like I remember seeing it in the theaters and like my mind being blown.
I like that
It's
too.
a great movie.
I like it. I do. Cause I love how it like traces, while not maybe like as accurate, but just traces Wolverine's roots back to Japan, because like I feel like, we get that in comics, like, but I feel like it's not stressed upon enough, and like just his like kind of ties or whatnot to like, Japan or whatnot. So I love that it touched upon that aspect. You saw Wolverine in a different environment.
It's kind of based off the Frank Miller Wolverine
Yes,
miniseries, right? Yeah,
yes. Yeah.
Hmm.
Silver Samurai. He's
Yeah.
really cool, Silver Samurai.
Yeah. The only thing I don't like,
His design in that movie is
the
cool.
design, but also to the story. I get the whole premise of like the grandfather trying to like get like pretty much get younger in age. But I would have loved to see like in actual like Silver Samurai with the teleportation belt with this like like that would have been dope. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna lie, like with the whole like teleportation, like the whole like actually like acting as a rival to Wolverine, like literally. And I would have loved to see that because it just seemed like okay, like all he just wanted was like, okay, I want Wolverine's healing powers. But like I feel like the Silver Samurai in the comics, and I would say if we're talking about like X-Men slash Wolverine-ish villains, I'll put them on there. But like I feel that like, I feel like they have a great rivalry. Maybe not as great as Wolverine and Sabretooth, but I love the history between the two.
The X-Men are a really great jumping on point for people that have never read comics that want to get into it because they really exist on their own. And I think there are so many what I love about comics is that it's very like you can kind of read what you want to read and there's so much there for you. And like with the X-Men, like you can read X Factor, you can read New Mutants, you can read some of the older X-Men stuff. You can even read if you want like the Jonathan Hickman stuff and it's all very different and it stands on its own in a lot of ways and each these characters have such like a long history
Yeah.
and I just like the political aspect of it too like they're just the best one of the best
Yeah.
comic book characters just in general they're probably the best
Yeah.
team if you're
Oh yeah,
looking
for
like
sure.
objectively like
Yeah.
who's better than them the Justice League like come on
Way better. Like I said in the beginning, the best team. Like, let's think about it, right? That one episode pilot, 30 minutes, not even 22, 27, prior to the X-Men, it led to one of the greatest video games of all time.
yeah
30 minutes. It's not even a full TV show. Stop it, bro. Stop it. Stop it.
yeah
Stop it.
and
The
just everything
reason
they
why we
have
have
outside of
2D
it
fighters, like 2D sprite fighters, the way we do. X-Men Children of the Atom. Come on, man.
yeah
The X-Men has just changed like too much culturally to be man. Nah. Greatest of all time.
and our tagline is like where comics meet culture and
Exactly.
that's why we chose the X-Men to do so early on before we did Spider-Man or Batman or any of those characters because I really feel like there's such a cultural aspect to these characters that other comic book characters they do not have
Yeah.
like straight up like they inspired so much outside of the comics and like you'll hear the X-Men referenced in like hip hop and stuff like I think that's really
Right?
really cool
Right? Like, and it's not a knock on any of the other superheroes, but I mean, Justice League, y'all cool. Avengers, y'all were cool for what? 2 cartoons? You know? X-Men are running on like what? Their fourth? Because let's not forget the X-Men anime that came out too.
Yeah, they've really.
Oh yeah, and the 2000. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and then Wolverine has his own solo anime, I believe.
I think he does too. Yeah.
Yeah, he had his own solo joint going on. I like that.
I know he has a manga that's very popular, Wolverine. I think it's like SNKT or whatever.
Yeah, they're I think they just released it too, or it's about to come out end of the year. But they're releasing all the manga, the X-Men mangas in an omnibus. Like I think it's 2 volumes. So
I
yeah.
should probably read that. I've seen. I always see that at like Barnes and Nobles and stuff, and it looks very good.
Yeah, I'm
and
gonna
also
check it out for myself.
Ultimate X-Men too, that is coming out right
Ultimate-
now. Not the original. The original is interesting,
Yeah.
but like the new.
Here's the thing about the original. The original was really good, and it goes back to what I said earlier.
Mhm.
It was really good up until they decided to make it a superhero comic instead of the X-Men, right? Because you had such really good stories coming out of it. You know, Magneto taking over friggin' Mjolnir. You know, you got Beast getting killed by a Sentinel and Storm going crazy, and that's when she gets the Mohawk, and Wolverine's the one that talks her down. You know, Sinister being a crazy guy who praises Apocalypse as a spirit in his head. It was just so much dope stuff that they reiterated on. And then they get to Ultimate Legion, who they reset the universe because Jean Grey discovered something. Then there was Ultimate Strife and Ultimate Onslaught, which was nothing more than armors for Professor X and Magneto, which I knew from the comic. I'm like, is this Professor X and Magneto again, isn't it? Huh. Boring. Then it was the whole thing with Ultimate Cable, where they made him Wolverine.
Yeah, weird. And
all
let's
3
not forget
times, it was
about.
just like Ultimate X-Men resetted their universe like 3-4 times. I promise you, if you read the whole like original run, there's like 2 resets in like 30 issues.
And let's not forget about Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver.
Yeah.
Like there's some wild stuff they do, and Wolverine is very strange in that too.
Oh yeah, I think I know what you're going to talk about.
Yeah, because he goes after Jean Grey, who's still a teenager at the time. The Ultimate original storyline was incredibly problematic, super problematic. I get that they wanted to make it, you know, more grounded and more realistic. Y'all made it a little too realistic, you know. Like, we didn't need the incestuous relationship between Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. Like, we didn't need that. Yeah. You know, but again, that's the one of the big problems with comics is that sometimes you have writers who inject themselves too much into the story.
Yeah. I agree. I think that's a problem with Mark Miller.
You know, that's what that story had happened around the time Jeff Loeb unfortunately had lost his son. So not only was he writing bad comics, but he was making some really bad decisions because Marvel elevated his position from just like overseeing, I think it was just the comics division, and to now he was in the television part, which is the whole reason why Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, Wolverine and the X-Men, and Spectacular Spider-Man, which are the 3 greatest Marvel cartoons to ever exist.
I agree.
Got canceled because of Jeff Loeb. So Jeff Loeb is good for one thing, and that's ruining shit. Sorry for going on.
No, I agree. Jeff Loeb, he had his golden era during the 90s and stuff where he wrote a lot of good stuff. And a little bit in the early 2000s, and then he just stopped. And he's just become like, he's one of those creators that I think become like puppets for the publishers, and they become like very distant from what they used to be. Like, I think Jim Lee, unfortunately, has also become that, where his art is not what it used to be, where it has this like, I don't know, like when these creators are young, I feel like they have a lot more hope in them, and then they become corporate like chess pieces later on, and leads to stuff like that happening.
I mean, with Jim Lee, his case is unique. He did have a lot of leadership roles across his, career. So, his skills definitely fell off. But I mean, he's leading DC, so
and he's doing a good job. Like he's
doing a damn good job.
Yeah.
DC
is doing great right now.
The stuff with the Absolute Universe is great. I don't know, some of DC's stuff I don't keep up with, but I know the Absolute Universe is pretty good. But anyway, I know that was a long, super long tangent to your question. Did I answer y'all question? I don't even know what the question originally was. So
I think it was you were talking about like the different you were talking about the different like comics we were talking about, like, you know, you were bringing up Ultimate X-Men, the new one.
oh yeah,
Ultimate
Ultimate
the,
X-Men.
the new Ultimate X-Men is very inspired by manga. And it takes a very unique
Yeah,
spin on the
but they
X-Men.
did Cyclops so dirty in that, man.
I don't.
I haven't read it. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, when y'all see it, it's yeah.
And then Ultimate Wolverine, I know, is out. I haven't really.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's what happened with Cyclops. He's an
Yeah, I
Ultimate
was gonna.
Wolverine.
Yeah, so the Ultimate X-Men is kind of its own thing, and it's
Yeah.
set in like Japan, and it centers around armor.
Armor.
And then Ultimate Wolverine is the one. I haven't read Ultimate Wolverine. Have you?
I know, like, he's pretty much like the Winter Soldier.
Yeah,
Okay.
he is the Winter Soldier. Yeah, that's the one we find out what happens with Cyclops and Havoc, and it's literally not pretty. I
Damn.
won't spoil it for you, but it's not pretty at all. Probably the worst thing that's happened to them ever. Yeah.
I've heard that book, the Ultimate Wolverine one, is cool to like look at, but it doesn't have that much substance to it.
Yeah.
It doesn't. And it's weird because it's very reminiscent of the Wolverine revenge story that just came out earlier this year. But basically what it is that Wolverine gets old and his Weapon X team, which is Sabretooth, Deadpool, Colossus, Omega Red, and I think Magic. I could be wrong on that last one. But the four of them do something and they betray Wolverine. And he's knocked out for a few years. And as he ends up going and trying to kill all of them, which is why it's called Wolverine Revenge.
Oh, he's going.
But the thing about Ultimate Wolverine that makes it so weird is that it's literally the same team. It's like in Ultimate Wolverine, it's Colossus, Magic, and Omega Red, and him being under their employ, but then breaking away from them. So I'm like, so y'all got the same villains again? Okay.
That's boring.
But it is, but I'll say this. Ultimate Wolverine is definitely a hell of a lot better than Sabretooth War. That was just, I don't know why. I really don't know why they made that story. That was atrocious. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm not too caught up with like some of the newer Marvel stuff. Marvel in particular, I've been pretty bad with keeping up with, to be honest. But I have been reading Ultimate X-Men as the only Ultimate series that I've been keeping up with. I think it's probably the best. I like it more than Spider-Man, to be honest. I know a lot of people love Ultimate Spider-Man, but I'm not a big Hickman guy. But I also want to talk about some of the like solo Wolverine stuff, Wolverine comics. Like Greg Rucka's run is one of my personal favorites because of how I love Greg Rucka and Ed Brubaker for how grounded they write stuff. And that is such a grounded take on Wolverine, where he's really not going after a lot of like big costume supervillains. He's going after like trafficking rings and like the cartel and stuff like that. And I think it's really cool to see him just kind of traveling as a lone wanderer, you know, and it really I think it nails the sadness that Wolverine has, but to me, it nailed a lot of the positive masculinity stuff where he's more than just this like guy who's running around killing things. It like means something to him. And there's something, I don't want to spoil it too much, but there's something with the cartel, with a woman that's running it in that run that is very interesting. And it shows like what you were saying before, Wolverine, he's not a sexist character. He's very like masculine and hairy, but he's not sexist. I think that makes his character very positive and good.
I love Weapon X. I feel like it's
good art.
I feel like it's one of like my top 5, like, or just generally like top 5 greatest superhero origin stories of all time, in my opinion. Like that book, I love it. I love it. Like, there's just so much to unpack there, just Wolverine, just history, and just like, you know, you kind of see like what he's been through and why the way he is. And, you know, kind of the same time too, yeah, he still carries that trauma with him, but he's like also trying to, you know, work with it and work on it, you know, to try to like heal him. Another interesting run I do feel, or Wolverine comic, Wolverine, I think it's Black, White, and Blood or something like that. It's like a color series, I think, and I feel like it's really like really cool. The art's very immersive.
The guy that did the art for Weapon X, he also, I think it was during the Claremont run, he did that issue where Wolverine fights Lady Deathstrike. That's another really
Barry Windsor Smith.
Yes, that's his name. He's very, very good. He I don't know if he's done stuff for the X-Men outside of that, but his art is like mind-blowing.
Favorite Wolverine runs.
Yeah.
Frank Miller's.
Yeah, classic.
Enemy of the State.
I forgot to mention that one. Yes.
Enemy of the State. There's another one that I really, really liked. I can't remember what it was though. It was after he had lost his bone claws. And I think like Apocalypse's son is, or one of the Genesis. I don't know how Genesis works. I don't know if it's actually his son or his son that he puts in different bodies. It's something weird like that. And then of course Wolverine Origin. Oh, how can we forget Old Man Logan? What do we?
Yeah,
Old Man Logan.
Very good.
Old Man Logan. Old Man Logan.
It's very different than the movie, but it's still very, very good.
I think it's worth it.
I think that's what disappointed me about the movie a little bit. And I'm like, y'all can't use Hulk, y'all can't use this person, y'all can't
Hawkeye.
use this person. Right? I mean, it was still a very good movie. I'm not gonna sit here and say it wasn't. But man, the comic that Old Man Logan came from, I remember the moment when I turned my. Before I go any further, did y'all read it?
Yes, I've read it.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember the moment when I turned the page and found out that Wolverine had killed his own, the X-Men, because of Mysterio. I was like, Jim Haley's universe, and just lost it, man. Absolutely lost it. And then I liked it because it's probably my favorite Wolverine story because it harkens back to like how Wolverine first got it, not announced. What's the word? Not published. I guess put in the comic. With him fighting the Hulk and then Hulk being like his nemesis. And,
yes.
And then the whole Western aspect, and there was just so much more story to tell, like with how each of the lands got carved up and who's running what and how did they end up running everything. But Old Man Logan just told a damn good story, man. Damn good. And then Mark Millar and Steve McNiven, man. Everything they've done has always been great. Everything they've done. Like story-wise, art, like they work incredibly well. And then I don't know if y'all know, but there is I literally just saw it like earlier today. There actually is an Old Man Hawkeye. So
I've heard it's pretty. I've heard like the follow-up series because Old Man Logan got his own like ongoing series after. I heard it's pretty good. I heard Old Man Hawkeye is also worth checking out. I mean, I haven't read. I've only just read the original story, but it's worth checking out. And Old Man Logan is one that Marvel just put out on like their compact comics too. So if you're watching this and you kind of want to get into it, that one is out there for like $15.
Sorry for the spoiler to the fans who hadn't read Old Man Logan yet.
It's been out for years.
Yeah.
Still, I don't care. I'm like, look, once it hits like 6 months, No,
I'm the same way. I think hearing you guys, both of you guys talk about it, like I just really I really want to get into them more. I read a lot of X-Men stuff for this, but like hearing Nick talk about like a lot of the political stuff and like how these characters were so cultural just really like resonated with me. And I really think like there's something really powerful about the X-Men. And I hope that in the future, their characters are done justice. I hope that when they do come to the MCU, it's done properly. And I hope that they have another renaissance again, where they're as big as they were in the 90s, because they deserve that more than Captain America, Iron Man, even like maybe even Hulk. Like they have the potential, I think. And I think they're one of the pillars of the comic book industry in general. I don't think, and though they started off as like a B-list kind of like, they weren't Marvel's main thing, they turned into something that like comics would not be what they are today without the X-Men. I think they're so important, and there's a big reason why we're doing the X-Men before anything else. Like they're so integral. They're the veins of Marvel Comics, I feel like. And they add humanity to it, and they're just so important. What do you think, Q?
I totally agree with like all that. I feel like the X-Men are just like they're the goats. Like, you know, not only just from my like lived experience, but like just the stories, like they mean something. Even just seeing like just different characters, you know, just their thematic representations, the costumes, just like
Costumes are great.
yeah, just their dynamics, just everything. I feel like I love like X-Men as its representation, you know, for as we were saying, bigotry, you know, politics, social aspects, you know, I love it. And I love, like I said, that like, you know, comics mirror reality, you know, art imitates life. So I love like the connections that it draws there. Love the X-Men.
And ultimately, they're very positive too.
Exactly.
They're very a positive beacon in the comic book industry. I think a lot of these characters, like even like I love Batman, but like he can represent a lot of negativity to certain people and certain groups that get a hold of his character. But I think the X-Men are a beacon of like hope and positivity in the comic industry.
Where do I stand with the X-Men? They mean a lot to me, because like I said in the beginning of the call, you know, like they really gave me a space to understand like my role as a black man, as a young black boy, right? Like they gave me a space to kind of like, okay, this is what it looks like. These are, you know, like I wrote about it in an article like many years ago. And it was like the X-Men kind of like were the people that I saw in my community, right? They were my uncle, you know, like they were the gym teacher. They were the guy on the block who fixed everybody's cars. And, you know, like I saw the different characters and all the people that were around me. And then I started to see them in myself. And for me, the fact that they fight in a world where they're marginalized, where they're criminalized, it mirrors, yes, it mirrors our own, right? But for me, it motivates me because I'm like, okay, if they could do that in there, what can I do out here? You know?
State.
That's very
and that's where, you know, my love for education has come from. It's always been to create a world where marginalized children, um, it's always been to create a world where marginalized children understand that they have options and understand that they're human beings as well, right? Like they're deserving of love. Like they can be everything that they want to. They don't have to look at themselves and think of themselves as ugly, as less than, as inhuman, as uh other, you know? That affects a lot of people in, you know, black, brown, gay, you know, all these different communities where people are hated just because of who they are, right? It stifles their self-confidence, it stifles their self-esteem, it stifles their own value in themselves. So the X-Men are the ones who are saying, nah, let's bring that, let's bring safety. You know, that's why you get the Genosias, you get the Krakoas, you get the Utopias, you know. These are the places where, like, how we do in the real world. All right, yo, we got an anime club. We got a club for, you know, the black students. We got a club for the, you know, gay student alliance. We got, you know, the Asian, you know, student club here. All these different places where people could be themselves and be safe. That's what the X-Men gave me. The X-Men gave me a way to say, yes, we're a superhero team. We're not real. You know, I can't shoot beams out of my eyes. You know, I can't do any of that stuff. But I can still show up. You know, there's still a fight that I can do. You know, and for me, I know I've been talking, but I'm very honored in the fact that, like, as you know, in the same vein as Professor Xavier, I could see my students grow, right? Even if we're not on the same page, I've seen them grow into some remarkable young humans. And that's my only goal. I just want to see them be good people. I don't care about like all your accomplishments and all that. That stuff comes and goes. You could be rich as hell today and poor as shit tomorrow. Who are you gonna be though throughout? You know? And I got my young man Q. I get to see him. You know what I mean? Like literally he's the product of me reading those comics in undergrad and in college hall and in my little room in my what I'm saying, like me downloading on WinRaw on a Saturday night, on a Wednesday night, whatever it was, whenever the new comics come out, I'm sitting in my room scrolling through, reading these pages, getting inspired and doing the activist work that I do. And now all these years later, I'm sitting here talking to a young man doing the same thing. That's a blessing. And that's what the X-Men brought me. You know what I'm saying? Like the X-Men empowered me to do all of that. I'm not, again, there's other people. I got other heroes and real life people that, to thank. But as far as like fictional media, no other team, no other entity, no other franchise is as impactful to me. And I want to say arguably as impactful to the world as the X-Men.
We really, really appreciate you coming on today.
Sure.
You were the X-Men professor.
Yeah.
You were the professor.
I see what you did there. I see what you did there, John. I see what you did there. Thank you. I mean,
your knowledge is unmatched.
I'm just a fan. I'm honestly not the most knowledgeable, but I am a huge fan. Okay, like again, I have a little.
You have an understanding of these characters, like
yeah,
what
man.
they
That's
mean
all
to
it
a
is.
lot of people.
That's all it is, and I'm grateful to be on a space where I could, nerd out and share my love, and with some good young brothers, man. Y'all some dope folks, man. So thank y'all for letting me nerd out. I'm sorry if I took up too much of the conversation.
No.
I know we was only supposed to go for an hour, but shoot, man,
good.
the X-Men are one of those things
thing last time.
Go on and on about. So because they're so layered.
This is the Illustrated Underground signing off. We'll see you in our next episode, and hope everyone enjoyed.
All right.
Peace.
Peace out, y'all.